Hello all, this is Mohammed Aftab and today I'll show you the virtual setup which I'm using for my Juniper practice. Uh, Currently what you are seeing on the screen is the virtual setup which I'm using it on ESXi. I'm using the virtual image provided by Juniper for free for the students for the trial purpose. It's a VSRX image. Simultaneously I'm using Cisco Virtual IOS for L2 as well as L3. You can see some PCs connected here. I'm using Windows 7 PC as well as Windows XP, and for PC2 and PC3 I'm using a virtual iOS, and I'm just treating them as a PC. So let me walk you through that. So if I type show version in iOS, so you can see that I'm running 15.4 version of Cisco iOS, and I've just configured an IP address and I have not configured any routing. I've just set a default gateway as 100.1, right? So currently I'm using 192.168.100.0/24 subnet for the internal part, and I'm calling this part of zone as Aftab internal, right? Uh, and I've created another zone as Aftab DMZ, and I've assigned that a subnet of 172.1600.0/24. This is hanging off gigabit 0/0/2 interface of SRX. Uh, uh, Both the switches are one. Just for the sake of diagram, I've just connected it differently. Uh, just for the sake of understanding of this diagram. I've also configured an interface with R1 and SRX1, and I've provided a subnet of 110.110/30. I'm treating this zone as external zone, but during the configuration of SRX, we might get confused. As a result, I've just given a meaningful name as aftab.external for that particular zone. We will be configuring right from the scratch. This is an overview as to what we will be doing. First, we will configure the current SRX to factory default. We will configure the host name and will assign a root password. We will configure the interfaces as per the diagram. We would then configure zones. Zones are required from SRX perspective. Every interface would be part of some zone, and then we can create some policies. Now policies are required for the communication to happen between one zone to another and vice versa. At last, I will also show you how to create a NAT for this particular deployment. Let's get started. So this is my virtual switch, but before that we'll factory default the SRX. In order to do that, you need to go to configure mode, or you can type edit to get into the mode, and then say load factory default. Once you do that, and I can show you show compare, right? Now because I've already defaulted this machine, but still once I say factory default, it will show you this plus sign and the minus sign, right? These commands would be added and this commands would be removed. So currently the system name is, or the host name is aftab.srx. Now that we have done a load default, this would be removed, the current password would be removed, and any other configuration which is there would also be removed. So let's do a commit and quit. Right. Now this is something very important. Once you do a factory default, it will, or Juniper will, the code with its loaded needs to have a root password defined. So set system root authentication. Let me give a plain text password. Okay. Now if I say commit and quit, yes, I'm done. Now you can say that the host name, which is showing aftab-srx, would be now changed. Give it a moment, and there it is. So we will configure set system hostname, say SRX lab, and we'll configure the interfaces, right? Now, as per the diagram, you can see that the G000 which connects to internet, as per the diagram, has having an IP address 110.110/30. So let me configure that. Set interface G000 unit 0 family INET address. Your family INET refers to IPv4 address 1.1.1/20 /30. Then set interface 001. 001 is having 192. Unit 0 family INET address 192.168.100.1/24, and we will configure this interface as 172.16. So set interface see that show compare will tell you what are the changes we are doing. Again, plus refers that we are adding these interfaces, right? So I'm going to this particular interface and I'm giving an IP address of 110.111. For gig interface, I'm giving an IP address of 100.1, and for this interface, let's comment the changes. Right there, you can see that I have given a host name as SRX Labs. So now we are back to this. Now, as per our diagram, right, any traffic which comes here from this particular zone, like we are not configuring or any dynamic routing protocol, so I'm just creating a default route pointing out to the internet. So let me configure that as well. Set routing options, static route, say 0.0.0.0.0. Next hop would be 110.1.1.2. Show compare static routes, users, right, comments, just to make sure what is the IP address I have. Show IP interface brief. Yeah, and what I've done is show running load IP route. I've just added a default route, or not a default route, a route for this subnets back to SRX. So in case in future, if any traffic which is coming from these interfaces for this particular IP address, there should be a response back to that, right? So back to SRX. Now that we have configured as per our diagram, so we did default the SRX, we created a host name, assigned a root password, we configured the interfaces, and we have also configured the default route. Now we will configure the zones. Now, so as I said, 192.168.100.0 would be configured as part of zone aftab-internal, but before that we'll just do a basic test to see if we can ping the connected interfaces, right? So if I type, okay, my current IP address is 192.168.100.11. I can ping myself, I can ping the other interfaces PC2, and I can ping my Windows 7 PC .10. Oh, sorry, my Windows 7 was. And this I'm using a Windows 7 machine just to show that we can do some web management or access to the box. Just give it a moment. And I'm also using one Windows XP machine as well, right? So I can ping myself. So I I should now be able to ping this thing. So if you look from the switch perspective, if I show MAC address in VLAN 100, I can learn this interfaces, right? 00. So where is my diagram? Okay, right. So now if I go to the SRX, show interface doors. I can ping myself, and if like in Cisco, once you ping, you just get 5 ping. If you want that sort of manner, you can just type rapid and you'll just have a ping for a certain amount of packets, right? But now if I just ping 11, I cannot ping. If I try to ping this subnet, I cannot ping, and I cannot reach my Windows 7 as well. Right? This is how the default mechanism of Juniper Firewall works. Reason is, if you see show interface 01 brief, here nothing is allowed by default, so we need to configure the interfaces to allow communication like ping, telnet, SSH. If you want to have these services enabled, you need to configure, but before that we need to configure this particular interface as a part of a zone, right? So I will configure this G0001, any traffic which is coming in on that interface with this subnet would be part of zone internal. So configure, set security zone, then you can give a name as after-internal interface 0 host and bond system traffic ping, use up arrow, SSH, up arrow, telnet, show compare. You can see that for this particular interface, this interface is added as part of zone internal, and I'm allowing these services. Command. Let's do the same thing for other interfaces as well. So set security zone after that external interface 0.0 host and mount traffic. Let's allow all the three: ping, telnet, and SSH. Oops. Now by default, ping, SSH are part of system services. So ping, arrow, SSH, and telnet. And say again show compare. So for external, I have added this interfaces just to see. Yeah, 000 part of external interface. Done. Commits and set security zone. After that is DMZ interface 0/2.0 host and bound traffic system services ping. For the DMZ, I'm just only allowing ping for the time being, right? So compare. So for external, I've added this. For DMZ, I've only allowed ping, just to make sure, the connectivity is fine. And once I do commit, it gives me an error. Now, what this error means is that this interface is already part of some other zone, right? In order to assign an interface to one zone, we need to make sure that this zone is not a part of any other zone, or this interface is not part of any other zone. So run show config. I believe this is part of untrust zone, which is by default. Yeah, you can see this, right? So delete security zone, untrust interface gig 000, show compare. So we can see this minus, which is from untrust, and then yeah, commit, right? Now what will happen with this is if I ping 192.168.100.10, which is my IP address of the Windows 7 machine, it works, right? Rapid, fair enough. So if I type show ARP, I can see that for 10, 11 and 12 I have this, and if I just go here, right, so you can see that for 10 the layer 2 address is 68AE, 68AE is part of VLAN 100, and it's not on gig interface 0/0. So that's connects. So if I ping from my external interface or external zone, I should be able to ping. Oh, you all debugs are on. Sorry for that, you all. So if I ping, and sure enough, I get a response. So again, if I just go and type show ARP, you can see that 689E show interface G0/0 include BIA, and 6898 is a layer 2 address of this interface. So now we need to have some policies enabled. Now what exactly policies allows us to do? If you want to have communication between zone, let's say aftab internal to aftab external, if you want the traffic to travel from one zone to another zone, we need to create policies. But before creating policies, we can create something called address book based on the subnet per zone. So in zone aftab internal, you can see that I'm using 192.168.100.0, and for the DMZ I'm using 172.16.100.0. So let's quickly create address book. I'll just tell you shortly what is the advantage of that. So set security, I'm sorry, I'm on XRS. Set security zone after internal. For this I need to create an address book. For this address, I'll name this as address 192, and the subnet is 192.168.100.0/25, right? And I'll do it the same for the DMZ. Set security zone after external address book address, say network 172. I'm just giving a name, and I'll define the subnet here 172.16.100.0/24, right? Show compare. You can see that for this internal I just created this book and I've given a name. You can also give a description so that but for the sake of this lab I'm not doing that. But in case if you want to do that, all you need to do is say description. This is for DMZ subnet. Show compare, and fair enough, you can see that, right? The descriptions are easy and mandatory to do in real-time network. Well, now let's create some policies. So now my policy should be like the internal zone should be able to talk to external zone. Let's give a try whether they can do it at this point of time or not. So at this, can I ping my SRX? Fair enough, I can do that. And if I want to ping my external network, ping 110.1.1.1, I can't, yeah, right. And obviously I cannot ping even the other interfaces. Now, oh, I did not configure the web. I'll just do that after this lab as well. I'll show you how to configure the web management as well for that. So let's create this policy. So set security. Now all the policies are under set security policies. Now basically whenever you do this, you need to tell from where to where, right? So from zone would be aftab internal, to zone would be this thing, right? So from zone aftab internal, yeah, to zone where the traffic is going to aftab external. This is why I just gave this name as aftab dash internal external to avoid confusion, right? Now once we do that, we need to give a name of a policy. So what? So we'll just give some allow in as an internal to go out, right? Once I give this policy, now I need to tell what I need to match. So as per the diagram, I can see that the internal address is 192.168.100.0. So the source of this subnet would be 192.168.100.0. Destination in my lab, I can just do that 110.0.0.0, but as a real time, I'll just give anything. So I'll just give 0.0.0. So the match of would be source address. Now if remember previously we created address book, so this is where it comes handy. So network 192. Now just use up arrow. I want to allow match destination address, can be anything, so I'll just say right any. Once it is done, any specific application which it wants to use, so I can say application. Now Junos has built-in services whether you want only certain specific application to go through, but for the sake of this lab I'll just give it any. So now if I type show compare, even though we did not give a then statement, but just will check it. So now we are allowing from internal to external. We can give them a name of this policy, we are matching these things, but yeah, it gives us an information that okay, we need to configure a then statement as well. So use up arrow, I'll just give then, and then what will permit it for the time being, right? Comment. Simple and easy, right? So just test it out. No, what am I doing? Earlier I could not ping it, now I can ping it, right? But if I look at this, right, show security flow and session, right? Let me just, okay, now I will just create a continuous ping here to show you a little disadvantage with this sort of setup. Now that we are pinging it, and if I just say session, you can see that the interface I'm getting with an IP address which is the Windows 7 IP, external IP is going there, out and in, right? Now we want to hide this address,